Always loved my computer, but I think the first time I felt like I loved my computer was when I got my first laptop, because that was a really distinct change between, you know, having to use the shared family home PC that was just in a room, and I'd have to look forward to going home from school to go on the computer, versus when I got my first laptop, I was about 14 and it was just a skinny little PC laptop. It wasn't very powerful at all, but it was my computer. And then I could start making music anywhere, like on the bus or in class, and I didn't have to look forward to going home to like go on the internet and stuff. So maybe that was the moment of realization that I love my computer, not just the computer, you know? I don't feel like I'd be doing all the kind of things that I do without it. And because I'm from like a smaller town and I'm not from like a city where there's lots of things and culture and electronic music going on, I only found out about so many of the things that I like because of the internet. And if I was the age I am even like 20 years ago, it maybe would be so different. So yeah, like all of my favorite songs from when I first got into producing music, I just found on YouTube and SoundCloud and stuff. So I can't say, I don't know how different, I don't know how much of it is nature and nurture, you know what I mean? There's probably parts of me that would be the same without the internet. The most recent two singles with iPod Touch, I had a lot of kind of messages and comments and tags from people from the Central Coast who also bought Bus 64. And you know, again, that was just something I wrote because it was about me and it rhymed and it fit, and it wasn't for anyone else, but the fact that I didn't anticipate that heaps of people would relate to that. But also, yeah, again, like there's no kind of totally original art, you know, everything is kind of like built off other references and other things. And yeah, I think the main difference with this, the main thing that made this feel like an album that maybe made other things not feel like an album or made me not want to call it an album is in the past when I've made, you know, 10 or 12 track projects, the process has been kind of like, okay, I have just made all of this music, like, you know, each individual song, and then I've put it together, and then I've kind of given it a name and tried to find a thread between it and kind of package it up after. Like there wasn't necessarily a thesis going into the making of the music. And with I Love My Computer, I had an inkling that I've always wanted to make an album, but I always knew that I wanted it to be really intentional and have a lot of cohesion between the songs. So when I had maybe 5 or so songs, I tried to find like the commonality between those, and that was when I realized what the theme was and what the title was. And then from there, I actually like wrote a bunch of music or like finished a bunch of music with that in mind. So I kind of had a North Star throughout the process of making it that I didn't feel like I had with other music and in the other projects. And it doesn't mean that they're like worse at all or like inferior. It's more just that they were made with less intention and kind of put together and packaged after. Whereas my album, I wanted to know what it was about in the making. Does that make sense? I changed the structure around a lot of times. It was actually, before I had the songs fully done, the track list was quite different, and I would finish songs based on where they sit in the track list. And sometimes I would change intros or outros to make them flow more nicely together, or even just trim little bits of silences so that it felt like one thing. I guess because I'm a DJ and when I tour, that's the way I play. So I wanted it to maybe feel a little bit like that experience, and I wanted to have, I mean, some people might listen to it and think some of the songs are filler, and that's fine. But for me, there's no like filler songs on there. I really like all of them, and so I wanted to just have the momentum going the whole time and not have, even like some of them would just kind of fade out and then the next song would start. So I'd hear that and be like, no, that's wrong. I need to actually change the outro of this so that it moves more smoothly. It's such like fun, hedonistic music. And if you like think about like the EDM tropes, it's literally people going on the mic and saying, put your fucking hands up. Like you have to kind of not really care what people think of you to like do that. Like it is kind of like cringe and free in the best way. I don't know why more people are getting about it now. Maybe because it just feels really good. And maybe it reminds people of when they first heard music like that was just so bombastic and stimulating, and they're ready to feel like that again. I'm not really sure. That's how I feel, maybe. When I was younger, I do just remember the most frustrating thing was not being able to go to shows, because like all of my experiences of my favorite music were like just online or like in my headphones or on the bus, and I would see like videos of my favorite artists playing and be like, man, I want to go and see that, or like do that in person and stuff. But it was, I mean, I didn't even live that super far from the city. You know, I'm not from like the rural country of Australia, but you know, I would just, when I was really young, and shows are late and stuff, I just wasn't always allowed, or like it was a big effort to kind of drive there and back. So I was allowed to go to like one Sydney concert per year. And when you start to get a bit older, you start to like things because other people like them, or because you like care about, or maybe that's not everyone's experience, but it seems like maybe that's a bit of a thing. You start to care more about how you're perceived. But when you're super young, you just like things because they make you feel good. Australia's a little bit more isolated from the rest of the world, but maybe that feeling of just feeling so good about enjoying music, it's infectious, and it's maybe starting to spread a little bit more here, and maybe people are starting to be more like, oh, this actually feels better than any amount of cool that I could possibly feel. Maybe. I signed to Nina's label when I was about 18, and my first EP was with Nina, and all of my releases have been with Nina. I mean, other than like a few collabs, obviously, that have been on other artists' labels, but yeah, that's really like my home. And I met Nina, I mean, she's been like my hero and my idol since I was like early high school. So it's crazy that, she's part of my team now. It's actually really amazing. I love her so much, and I'm just so grateful that she kind of took me on when I was so young and didn't know anything. And she's been so generous and taught me so much. And now it feels like a nice culmination of all the work we've done together. And we've just worked together for so long. It's so seamless, and it's kind of like, oh, we're doing an album now. Like, great, let's go. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's perfect. There's no one else I would rather be doing it with. I learned like some things from like when I collaborate with friends and stuff. We always show each other like techniques or new plugins and stuff. But yeah, it's always been kind of instinctual. I have been writing songs since I was really little, just because I would feel like it felt like a fun thing to do, and they weren't very good. But yeah, it's always just kind of been something that was a hobby because it felt good, I guess. Yeah. That's kind of why it's called I Love My Computer, because that's kind of what it's about, is when I was looking at the demos that I had, and I was like, what's the through line here? Before I realized it was about my computer, I kind of had an inkling that it was something devotional, but it also wasn't love songs or like about people necessarily. And yeah, so that's kind of why I called it that, because I realized that everything I was doing was just laptop music that I learned how to make from YouTube. And I was like, oh man, I love doing this. Like, I love my computer. And that felt like the most kind of square root title I could come to. So yeah, if it says anything to people, hopefully it's just the same thing that it said to me, maybe. Yeah, which is that you can just like get a laptop and give it a go, pretty much.